If you haven't noticed, by the way, this is a makeup free day, and I just had my hair done, so it looks really pretty. But I'm makeup free right now, and I want you to feel comfortable in your skin. So if you don't want to wear makeup, don't wear makeup. There's a little lip gloss, so the lips are shiny, but you don't always have to be all dolled up. A friend of mine, she was the mother of my brother-in-law, was spending a lot of time in Texas. She'd moved there from Vermont at a young age. And she would say, you have to be a caterpillar during the day if you want to come out during a butterfly at night. There's something to that. Let's say it again, and let's say it correctly this time. If you want to be a butterfly, you need to be a caterpillar first. So here I am in my caterpillar stage. I've already started the transition though, because I did have my hair done today. And my lovely hairdresser, Ron, styled it a little bit extra and is going to put me on his Instagram page. So yay. But it's just the back of my head. So you really have to know what you're looking for. Look for the red hair. It's probably me. So that said, here we are. And I said last time, after a serious conversation, let's talk about something a lot less serious this time. And it's our appearances and what we wear as women. There's a lot of history behind this. If you've studied clothing, you will see there are eras where women wore next to nothing. Back in Egypt, they wore these diaphanous clothes. It was hot. They wanted to be protected from the sun, but they didn't want to be made hotter. So they didn't wear a whole lot of clothing. And there are lots of eras in history where that happens. Josephine, Napoleon's partner, was reputed for having very scandalous low cut dresses that, Gaz, might have even revealed her nipples. They don't put that in the movies these days, do they? No, they do not. Of course, the Puritans, if you showed anything, you were a wicked person. Not just the women, everybody was like dressed up to their noses practically. And there are other cultures that do the same thing. And if that is your culture, I totally respect that. I have been friends with Muslims who wear the headscarf, wear more covering, even in Arizona in the middle of the summer. And I did look at her and I said, how do you do it? And she said, once you get used to it, it's really not that bad. Do I entirely believe her? No. But I guess I've adjusted to Arizona, so I'm not one to judge. So as cultures emerged, and somewhere in our American history, we did see ankles for a little while, but it was mostly on children in like the mid 19th century. And of course, boys were supposed to wear pants that buckled below the knee. That was a sign of manhood when you suddenly wore pants. Or were they above the knee? That's right. It was in Music Man. Do you see your son buckling his pants below the knee? That was scandalous because he wasn't a boy anymore. He was striving for manhood. And womanhood, of course, much more strict. We didn't wear our hair down after we got out of a certain age in life. Girls wore their hair down, but women did not. It was considered indecent. And I actually knew a guy once who preferred that my hair would be up in public and down at home for him. That relationship didn't last. It can be a thing. It was something very intimate for him, and he didn't want other people to see it. Hem lengths, boy, in the 20th century and now into the 21st century, we've seen hem lengths go all over the map. But you have to realize going into the 20th century, so much as showing an ankle was scandalous. So when you see those suffragettes wearing those really long straight skirts, like you see about an inch or two of their ankle, they were scandalous. Remember the bloomer? You may have heard the word bloomer. Bloomer was this fancy underwear thing that actually was huge and blousy, and in its original inception went way below the knee. So that's a heck of a pair of underwear, huh? But they were designed by a woman named Amelia Bloomer, and she wanted to ride her bicycle. And so she designed the bloomer, and the bloomer caught on and was gave women a little bit more flexibility because they had something under their skirts. Yeah, would you believe for like centuries we had nothing under our skirts? Just skirts. And men didn't have underwear either. at least if Outlander's to be believed. There was a whole, that was in the book. I don't think it made it to the TV show, but that underwear was a new concept that we came up with not so very long ago in the grand specter of the history of humankind. Refreshing beer. As I talk about fashion and the little bits and pieces that I've collected over the years. Now, if you wonder why I know so much, it's because I really love clothes. And I did dabble in fashion design in my collegiate career. And I love the theater. So I've studied a lot about different periods of costuming and what people wear. I have a daughter who's actually a professional costume designer who every so often texts me and says, Mom, did you know? So I've collected this ephemera, this information that has very little purpose except for telling other people little trivia things and sounding really entertaining at cocktail parties. So the way women dress, scandal, not scandal. At one point, it's a scandal to show your ankle. It's another scandal to show your nipples. It's another scandal to show any other part of you, any other part of you. And we have these things programmed in our head. If you are my generation, you know the phrase, do you think a woman of your age should be wearing that? Now, that phrase isn't said so often anymore. But the really scary part is my generation, my parents' generation, my elder sisters, the women who came before me all said it. And we all still hear it when we look in the mirror. Do you think a woman of your age should be wearing that? Now, you have to realize that we're talking about women in their 20s at one point in history. Once they were married, they were considered to have to go undercover. You weren't supposed to be showing yourself off anymore. You were a woman and you were to put your hair up and be properly composed. Because if you didn't, you were called a loose woman. If you don't know what a loose woman is, that is someone who sells her wares. She is a prostitute, a hooker, named after the fact that they used to use the crook of their umbrellas to hook men in. Interesting that our society limited what a woman could do if she was unwed, and then branded those who successfully marketed the one asset that no man had, and maybe made a very successful living doing it, and maybe with the husbands of the same women who were being respectable. That's an interesting thought there. So here we are carrying this baggage of the generations that went before us, of our fathers who warned us against being one of those women, of our mothers who were terrified of being one of those women. And here we are, a long time later, quietly carrying that baggage. Now, I understand how it happens. I went to my daughter's mother-daughter weekend at her college a couple of years ago, and I was trying to hold my own. There was a lot of drinking involved in that weekend. And it's not like it's the first time I'd done that, but as a mom, it was the first time I'd done that. And here I am telling my daughter that maybe she'd like to dress differently. And I'm looking around the room, which would be a bar, and there are young women wearing, let's go back to that discussion of underwear, what we would have called underwear not so very long ago. And they're wearing it as clothes, jeans and a bra, jeans and a corset, not like a pretty finished corset that looks like you want to wear outside. Oh God, that was judgy, wasn't it? That is what I would have considered something that went under something, and only the special someone in your life gets to see it. But here these young women were in a bar and they were wearing shorts that made by Daisy Dukes. Does anyone remember Daisy Dukes from the Dukes of Hazzard? Daisy Dukes. Actually, I think it predated that to Little Abner, but it was revived by Dukes of Hazzard in the 70s. Wow, I am a nerd. Anyway, my father lost his mind when my shorts were that short. And here are girls with half their butt cheek hanging out. Like, I'm wondering if I'm going to see labia at any moment. I'm just a little concerned. I'm one of the older moms. I had my youngest when I was in my mid-30s. You're going to get used to that pace, aren't you? And so I'm one of the older moms. And I looked at one of the other moms and I said, do you know what? I feel really bad because my generation is to blame for what we're seeing right here. She turned, she looked at me, she's confused. She's like, how are you responsible for this? And I said, because we followed Madonna. And when we wore our black bras under our white shirts, the elders lost their minds. Now, when I say elders, I don't mean necessarily church elders because we didn't have elders in my church. I mean like my dad and maybe some of the old folks who were around going, "Dear, do you think you need to cover something up? Did you make a mistake? Did you get dressed in the dark?" And all we were doing was wearing a black bra under a white top, and you could see that we were wearing a bra. In the 1980s, that was scandalous. So if you're a younger woman listening to this, just think how scandalous you would be back in the 1980s. Here in the 2020s, I don't know what you do to be scandalous. I go to some of these bars. There's not so very often do I go to these bars. But when I'm hanging out with some of my younger modeling friends, they have after parties. And the after parties are in the entertainment district where they have what's called bottle service. If you don't know what that is, you're my generation, go ask someone younger. It's your table, instead of ordering a variety of drinks, orders a bunch of mixers and a bottle of liquor. And there is a young woman who comes out and unlocks that bottle of liquor and distributes it around the table, and then comes back every so often to keep redistributing. This is not necessarily a cheaper way to drink alcohol if you're thinking someone was brilliant, depending on where you go. And I think what you're paying for more than the bottle is the young woman with the key to the lock that opens the bottle. So the young women who serve these bottles of liquor, they're not wearing clothing per se. They're wearing lingerie. They are wearing definitely lingerie. Now, sometimes it is layered over an actual pair of underwear or stockings or a bra, but it's underwear. And the mom in me is looking at ass cheeks between garters, thinking, what happened? What happened? So, wow, I was going to be talking about our generation and not judging the younger generation. So let's get back to our generation, women of a certain age deciding what we're going to wear. And what I'm trying to say is judgment is real. There's been judgment for years. And it started with showing your ankles in the early 20th century. And there have been various iterations, probably for all of humankind. And we were made the guardians of what people should see and accidentally inflaming men's libido. We are put in charge of making sure we aren't showing anything that people wouldn't want to see on a woman of a certain age and not inflaming a man's libido. So, do you want me to deal with part one or part two? Part two, dude, keep it in your pants. If you're not invited, it's not for you. Sorry. Is that harsh? It is. But after a Me Too generation, and after being a woman who had to deal with some of the shit before the Me Too generation, I'm going to say that. One of my favorite comedians I heard one time said, yeah, this whole she was dressed for it, she was asking for it. Next time I see a guy in a football jersey, I'm going to tackle him when he didn't see me coming, throw him on the ground, smash his head into the mud, and say, you were dressed for it. He was wearing a football jersey. He deserved it. She had a point there. And I'm going to leave this part alone. It'll probably come up again because I take the Me Too movement just a teeny bit personally because me too. But the first part, being in charge of what people are bothered by, it's a tough one because there are times when I think people should dress what I would call appropriately. If you are going to a formal event, please dress appropriately. Now, that doesn't mean you can't wear your Converse, but it means you wear a nice pair of Converse. Doesn't mean you have to wear a dress. If you are a person who doesn't like dresses, then wear a tux or wear a really nice suit with a really nice tie. Dress appropriately for the occasion. It's really important to a lot of people that you respect their event by dressing appropriately. If you don't respect their event, you don't want to dress appropriately, here's a thought: don't go. But also, actually, let's back up. It's not just about dressing appropriately for an event. It's about dressing appropriately for you. Now, at the age of 58, I never thought I'd be wearing short skirts again. But after several years of yoga, my knees are ready to come out and see the sun again. There was a period of time when I was wearing dresses or pants to cover my knees. I wasn't really happy with that. And if you don't like your knees, okay, cover them up. But if you love your knees, if you love the feeling of a cool breeze on a skirt, you wear that, girl. You wear what you want to wear. Now, if it doesn't fit you properly, let's have another discussion. Find a tailor. Have somebody help you find clothes that fit you better. Get a tailor to alter a few things. It's better to have a handful of things that fit you really well than a closet full of things that don't fit you well. Now, before you say, I like to wear sweats, they're comfortable. I like to wear sweats, they're comfortable too. But there are places you don't wear sweats. And if you're wearing those clothes to hide your body, if you have personal shame on yourself, I really encourage you to find a different way to dress. I'm not saying a tuxedo. If you're a person who wears t-shirts, wear t-shirts, but maybe pick one without a logo for better events. And if it gets really ratty, that's the one you sleep in and paint in. There are still some social niceties. There are no more social rules. You can wear white after Labor Day. That's another old, outdated commodity. You didn't wear white shoes or anything, actually, strangely. I guess you could wear like a white turtleneck under your shirt. But anyway, you didn't wear white after Labor Day or before Memorial Day. So there you were from the beginning of September until the end of May. White was forbidden, especially white shoes. I don't know why that was so particularly vile, but it was a social norm. I need to drink a beer to get through that. That you were not going to wear white. Thankfully, that one's gone away. I love my white kids. And believe it or not, in my 20s, I actually had somebody say, oh dear, you're wearing white after Labor Day. They were kids. It's not like I was wearing white stilettos, which I knew was a faux pas, but hello. And white snowsuits? What looks prettier than a white snowsuit? Again, not needed in Arizona, unless you go skiing up in the mountains. We do have mountains, we do have snow in winter. But as women, take that voice out that says, should a woman of your age fill in the blank? Should a woman of your age wear sparkly makeup? Not if you have deep creases and it bothers you to have the glitter build up in your creases. You shouldn't wear your athleisure everywhere. But there is some really nice athleisure you can pair with a blazer and wear a lot of places. So there are a lot of ways to break the rules and do it right and not be the butt of the joke and still be yourself and still feel happy and still feel comfortable. And there's some great designers out there. Do you realize that when I was in my 20s and I got a little chunky because I wasn't busy in school anymore and zipping all over the place, and I was eating 3 square meals a day, and I put on a few extra pounds. And I've done that a few times in my life, and I've lost it, I've gained it, I've lost it, I've gained it. But I remember the humiliation of going into a store, a big department store, looking for something I liked, finding something I liked, finding a sales girl and saying, hey, do you have this in a larger size? And this was her response: ma'am, the plus sizes are upstairs. Back then, so we're talking 30 years ago, back then, women who carried extra weight that were above a size 10 sometimes, but definitely anything above a 12, were relegated to oversized, blousy clothing that concealed their bodies. I am so grateful for the designers today who know how to dress for a woman that has boobs, that has an ass, that has curves, and still wants to look beautiful, isn't content to have a car cover called a piece of clothing. Don't settle for that. Shopping can be frustrating. There will still be stores where you can't find anything over a size 8. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to make you feel better about that. I am going to tell you, don't go there. Keep shopping. And when you find a brand that works for you, tell them why you're shopping there and tell you're going to keep shopping there.